All right, welcome back. So, the title of this mini lecture is The American Civil War from 1863 to 1865. This is a long war with a complex history, so we're going to talk about 5 things that you should be thinking about or know as you dig into this work, as you get into the reading. Let's get started. First off, the Battle of Chancellorsville. The Battle of Chancellorsville is an often underlooked or discussed topic or battle when talking about key events or factors in the war, partly because Gettysburg and Vicksburg happened right after it. The U.S. forces here were commanded by John Hooker. The Confederate forces here were commanded by Robert E. Lee. Lee used one of his corps commanders, Stonewall Jackson, and his forces particularly well in this battle, although Jackson himself would be a casualty here. And they divide their forces, and they overwhelm Hooker, and they are successful. This came on the heels of a winter encampment, which had come on the heels of the Battle of Fredericksburg, and so this success at Chancellorsville in 1863 really kind of stood for the Confederates as their apogee. Secondly, the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, the Battle of Gettysburg is perhaps the most famous battle in the American Civil War, and there's a few reasons for this. One, the casualty level. There's 50,000 casualties on both sides. Two, the press that it's gotten. It was a big focus of Ken Burns' PBS Civil War series. The narrative, the novel Killer Angels, was turned into a movie in the early 1990s about the Battle of Gettysburg. And third, visitors. So the Battle of Gettysburg battlefield site has been largely preserved, and many hundreds of thousands of individuals go to visit every year, both from this country and all over the world. So, the Battle of Gettysburg was fought over the course of 3 days, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. The first day, the fighting largely occurred outside of town. They're driven through town, and U.S. forces set up defensive positions on some of the heights outside of town. Second day, Confederate forces try to dislodge U.S. forces. They're largely unsuccessful in doing so. Third day, there is a massive Confederate artillery barrage, I believe the largest in the history of North America, and an open field attack on the part of the Confederates. This is known as Pickett's Charge. Now, this was an unsuccessful event, and U.S. forces, by the end of the third day, are successful in the battle. Now, again, partly, public sources have often attempted to support a narrative that the Battle of Gettysburg was the singularly most decisive battle in the American Civil War. Most modern military historians wouldn't agree with that characterization. They would agree that it's important. They would agree that it has a great deal of importance in 1863 and beyond. But to say that it's singularly the most decisive battle in the war isn't exactly true. A better way to think about the Battle of Gettysburg is that the Confederates' ability to engage in offensive operations largely declines as a result of the battle. Basically, their window of opportunity is closing or closes. Next, Vicksburg. Vicksburg was a contemporary battle and campaign of the Battle of Gettysburg. It is decided by the 4th of July, 1863, when Confederate forces surrender the town of Vicksburg that U.S. forces under the command of General Grant had been laying siege to for a number of weeks. This siege and the eventual capture of the city of Vicksburg was a big deal, because what ends up happening as a result of it is that the Confederacy is split in two, and this has implications for the rest of the war. So in many ways, Vicksburg is somewhat more decisive than Gettysburg was. All right. Fourth, Atlanta and the election. If we really want to look at a decisive or important battle where, because of this, you can see a clear path to victory for the United States, the capturing of the city of Atlanta about a month or so before the presidential election of 1864, this might be it. So, because of this capturing, you see a change or shift in support for President Lincoln's reelection campaign that fall. The reelection of Lincoln had not been a foregone conclusion, and the Democratic Party had supported a platform of which peace was a part of this, right? Negotiations for peace, negotiations with the Confederacy. So, the what-if game, great game in history, if Lincoln had lost the election, of course, you may have seen the Confederate States of America come into existence. So Atlanta helps to ensure Lincoln's reelection and a U.S. victory in the war. All right. Lastly, Petersburg Siege. General Grant's forces through the summer and fall of 1864 are fighting a series of battles with forces in the east. The eventual result of this is they back them into a siege around the city of Petersburg, Virginia. Now, the Confederates will try to break out of that siege and will eventually have to surrender. But this is noted, of course, for the conditions that the soldiers had to endure, but also because in some ways it foreshadowed campaigns and conflicts to come during the early 20th century. Thanks so much.